I'm living in with my sister and her husband starting today. Why don't you just check into a facility, you outsider? Thomas and his sister and her husband suddenly barged into our house and said that. Why do I have to leave this house? Because we can't keep living as a married couple anymore. What? Thomas claimed that I had been using him as a housekeeper all along. In other words, I've been a victim of your emotional abuse for years. That's terrible, poor Thomas, his sister said with exaggerated drama, pretending to wipe away non-existent tears. But I can't take it anymore. I'm divorcing you. I'll be getting alimony and my share of the assets. First off, this house. I put up with this for 2 years, so I deserve it, don't I? Yeah, exactly. I wonder who pays the $3,300 living expenses. The next day, as I moved into a luxury facility worth $2 million, I got a barrage of hysterical calls from my ex-husband and his sister. My name is Aubrey White, and I just turned 40 a little while ago. I'm a day trader, an investor dealing in stocks and currency. Thankfully, my work is going well, and I have a decent amount of wealth. I was born with a chronic condition. While it isn't life-threatening, I'm advised not to exert myself too much and to avoid childbirth, as it's risky for me. My parents never hid this from me. They raised me to face my illness and live my life with determination. My father, who worked at a brokerage firm, taught me about stocks, which is why I'm able to work as an investor now. My husband's name is Thomas, 30 years old. He's 10 years younger than me, and we've been married for 2 years. We met when he started working as a waiter at my favorite restaurant. I thought he was cute, but it was supposed to be just a customer-staff relationship. But somehow, he became attached to me, and we went from friends to lovers, and before I knew it, we were thinking about marriage. I knew this couldn't go on. After all, I can't have children. Thomas is still in his 20s, and I couldn't ask someone so young to give up on having kids just to marry me. I turned down his proposal once. But then, Thomas said to me, I want to live my life with you, Aubrey. That's why I proposed. If I wanted kids, I'd choose someone else from the start. Or don't you trust me that much? I was so happy I cried. And I decided to accept his proposal. Right after we got married, Thomas said, I'll become a stay-at-home husband and take care of everything. I don't mind working as a waiter, but wouldn't it be easier for you if I handled the household stuff? You know I'm good at cooking. Thomas is indeed good at cooking. He was always interested in food and took a job related to it. Though he wasn't a chef, he said he learned a lot by observing. That's how we first started talking. When I mentioned that my brother worked at a restaurant and had just opened his own place, Thomas got really interested, and we had a great conversation. Thomas's eyes lit up as he told me he also wanted to open his own place someday and asked if he could hear more stories. Seeing the excitement in his eyes, I asked him how becoming a stay-at-home husband fit with his dream. He replied, What, you think being a stay-at-home husband means I can't have a restaurant? That's pretty insulting to people who do housework full-time, don't you think? That's such an outdated notion. Plus, don't you want to spend more time together? I want to be with you as much as possible. I was so touched by his words that I agreed to his proposal. So, I worked while Thomas handled all the household chores. At first, it worked out really well. But gradually, Thomas stopped doing the housework. The living room, which had the feel of a newlywed home, was now filled with comic books and video games, and Thomas would sit in front of the large TV set and play all night long. At first, it was just occasionally, so I didn't mind, but it kept getting worse until he completely flipped his schedule, staying up all night and sleeping all day. Thomas, this is getting a bit out of hand, don't you think? Sorry, I'm just really into this game right now. Can you let it slide until I finish it, please? I reluctantly agreed, but once that game ended, he got hooked on a new one. The house was a mess. When we first got married, Thomas would clean diligently and keep everything in order. He was such a good stay-at-home husband, I don't know what happened. I put up with it for a few months, but one day, I couldn't take it anymore. Thomas, we need to talk. What about? The man I married seemed more like an elementary school kid now. I felt like a mom scolding her child to do their homework before playing games. We're supposed to be partners, right? Equals. You wanted to be a stay-at-home husband, so you need to keep that promise. I'm not saying you can't play, but do your chores first. After I laid it all out, Thomas thought for a moment and said, "You're right, I'm sorry. I got carried away. I'll make sure to finish my chores before playing." Thomas did go back to being the perfect stay-at-home husband, but something was different. He always seemed unhappy. At the beginning of our marriage, he enjoyed cooking and took pride in our clean house. Now, he quickly finished his chores and retreated to his room. He used to play games on the big TV in the living room or read comics on the sofa. Now, he played online games on his computer in his room. He'd often set the table with food and say, "Sorry, I've got a dungeon raid tonight. I don't have time to eat with you. Just leave the dishes, and I'll wash them later." I'd watch him go to his room and eat alone, feeling lonely. Even the tastiest food loses its flavor when eaten that way. But he was keeping his promise to do the housework, so I couldn't complain. And it wasn't just about meals anymore. "I've got a guild battle tonight, so I don't know when I'll be back. Go ahead and sleep without me." He said so and did not come back to the bedroom. Recently, it's like that every night. During the day, he'd go out alone. When I asked where he was going, he'd just say, "Shopping," and not come back until night. But he always made sure to leave my meals ready. It felt like he was doing it out of spite. At that time, I told him to just take care of the house, so it was hard to complain in this situation where he was doing a good job of cleaning, laundry, and cooking. But this wasn't family life. I felt like a live-in housekeeper. We lost most of our conversation anymore. I just eat a cold meal that has been pre-made, change into clothes that have only been washed, and dawdle in a room that has been cleaned. I thought it would have been less lonely to be alone from the start. I'd look at the door to Thomas's room, feeling sad and crying. However, I kept telling myself he'd settle down eventually, and things would go back to normal, so I endured in silence. And about a year into this lifestyle, Thomas suddenly announced, "I'm living in with my sister and her husband starting today. Why don't you just check into a facility, you outsider?" Thomas and his sister and her husband suddenly barged into our house and said that. I had no idea what they meant. Thomas had told me that when he moved in here after our marriage, his sister and her husband moved into the apartment he left. "Wait, Thomas, are you moving back to the old apartment?" When I blurted that out in confusion, the three of them exchanged glances and burst into laughter. No, I'm going to live here with my sister and her husband. You're the one who's leaving." I was even more confused. "Why do I have to leave this house? Because we can't keep living as a married couple anymore." What? Thomas claimed that I had been using him as a housekeeper all along. "In other words, I've been a victim of your emotional abuse for years. That's terrible, poor Thomas," his sister said with exaggerated drama, pretending to wipe away non-existent tears. "But I can't take it anymore. I'm divorcing you. I'll be getting alimony and my share of the assets. First off, this house. I put up with this for 2 years, so I deserve it, don't I?" "Yeah, exactly." Thomas kept making claims, and his sister kept supporting him many times. Her husband just stood there smirking at them. "I see, so that's how it is." I think I finally understood what was happening. Thomas probably planned this from the beginning. He sweet-talked me into marrying him and planned to divorce me when it was convenient. He planned to get various things from me, as he said earlier. I had planned to not get married forever. Knowing I couldn't have children and not being particularly attractive, I didn't think I had a particularly good personality. I didn't expect any man to want to marry me. So I decided to live on my own, by myself, and have spent my life working and enjoying my hobbies. I had friends and a normal family relationship with my parents and brother. My parents moved to a rural area where my father grew up after he retired, living with my brother and his wife. My brother worked in a restaurant for years, got married, and opened a small restaurant with his wife. They chose to live with our parents, to choose where they started. The land is large enough, so they built a separate building on the property, which is called living together on the property. Originally, I was born and raised in this town, which is very close to the city center where I now live, so it may be strange to call it a homecoming, but when I visit, I have a great time with my parents, my brother and his wife, and also with my 2 nephews. So I never felt lonely, so marrying a man 10 years younger was a surprise even to me. Looking back, I realize I was played. Listening to Thomas and my sister-in-law, I couldn't help but laugh at my own foolishness. Part of me always suspected something was off, because Thomas came on too strong, too suddenly, and his story was too perfect. Though I was initially cautious, his puppy-like affection wore me down. I started thinking quickly. How could I turn the tables? How could I teach them a lesson? As a day trader, it's my job to read situations, predict outcomes, and steer things in a favorable direction. I've won many battles that way until now, and I can win this one too. No, I will win. As I lowered my head and thought deeply, Thomas and the others kept hurling insults at me. Hey, why are you so quiet? Hurry up and pack your things. Get ready to leave. For now, I'll leave this house. All right, I'll go. I gathered only the essentials. All I need is a change of clothes, a laptop to work on, and a few other small things. Here, sign this. Thomas handed me a piece of paper. This is what is rumored to be called a divorce decree, with my sister-in-law and her husband's names already signed as witnesses. I'll fill out the divorce papers and submit them. I'll contact you if anything else is needed. Thomas and the others smirked as they saw me off from my own apartment. I had a place to go. I'll go there first and figure things out later. Well, they'll probably have a lot to say soon, but I'll deal with that later. I drove out of the apartment's parking. I headed toward my destination. I arrived at my destination, had a good night's sleep, and felt refreshed. I woke up later than usual and had brunch. The food here is always delicious. It's been over 2 years since I last came here, the first time since I got married. First, I messaged Thomas on social media, telling him where I was and that from now on, my lawyer would handle things. The phone rang almost immediately. Faster than I expected. What the hell is going on? I can hear my Sil yelling behind Thomas's voice, but I can't figure out what she is saying. What do you mean? Don't play dumb with me. Where are you right now? He reacted to that after all. I came here because I was kicked out of my house. Is that a problem? That's not the point. Thomas's voice was agitated. That's a high-end resort hotel with a membership. Why are you there? Why? Because I'm a member here. I never heard about this. Of course, you hadn't. I never told you. Thomas was right. This is a very luxurious hotel. But it's not just a hotel. It's a high-end resort hotel with lifelong care. In other words, it's also a luxury care facility. There's even a hospital next door. You can stay here as a guest, but if you buy in, you can live here like it's your home. It costs at least $20 million to get in, and it was a big deal in the media for a while. Thomas must have recognized the name, looked it up, and realized what it was before calling me. Why are you a member there? Because I paid for it. Thomas was making some unintelligible sounds on the other end of the line. Someone told me to go to a facility, so I decided to live here. You can continue to live in that house if you want to. However, the monthly rent is $3,300, so you have to work hard to pay it. What? No, this is your house. What do you mean, rent? I'm selling it. I was thinking about it for a while, and it looks like I won't be living there anymore. I had no plans to get married, and I bought that place when it was available so that I wouldn't have to bother anyone in my old age. I had already bought the apartment I lived in until yesterday, but I knew a facility like this wouldn't be available forever, so I made the investment. I had planned to move in here when I got older. This place is a bit far from the city center, so it's too early to retire and settle here permanently. So I kept it as a vacation home while I was still able to work. I would come here occasionally for a break, but I kept it a secret from everyone. The only ones who knew were my accountant and lawyer. Give me that too. As I was thinking, Thomas suddenly shouted, "It's alimony for me." Okay, I'll take that one too. No, you can have this one back. I'll go live there. How convenient for him. Who would agree to such a thing? I was astonished. I'm not giving you anything. From now on, contact me only through my lawyer. You have their contact information, right? Goodbye. I hung up the phone and turned it off. Now, maybe I'll go to the spa and relax. Not just to recover from yesterday, but to unwind from the past 2 years. To my surprise, the next day, Thomas and my sister-in-law showed up at the hotel. Thomas claimed at the front desk that he had the right to enter because he was family. I had asked the hotel not to let anyone in without my permission, and they certainly wouldn't let anyone in without authorization. This place is very well managed. I thought about ignoring them, but that would cause trouble for the hotel staff. Reluctantly, I agreed to meet them in the hotel lobby. At least there, we'd be in a public place with the concierge nearby. I figured they'd help if anything happened. When I asked what they wanted, Thomas smiled and said, "Aubrey, you're so mean. If you had a place like this, you should have told me. Why did you keep it a secret?" "Yeah, why did you hide it?" chimed in my Sil, with the same smile as Thomas. Looking at them, I realized how much they resembled each other, not just in looks but in their deviousness. "It doesn't matter anymore. Please leave or you're causing a disturbance. We're still married." "Not anymore. I told Thomas that I had filed the divorce papers on my way here yesterday. So we're no longer connected in any way." "Why did you file them without telling me?" "Without telling you? You were the one who gave me the signed papers in the first place. Don't worry, divorced couples can refile without waiting 6 months, so you can just reapply." "Yeah, that's what she said. So let's do that." My Sil shared some piece of trivia she'd picked up somewhere, and Thomas eagerly agreed with her. "No thanks." I stood up, ignoring the three of them as they tried to follow me, and headed back to my room. The concierge stopped them. "I won't give up. I'll come here every day to show you how much I love you. You're so cool, big brother." I listened to their ridiculous drama as I walked back to my room, feeling exhausted. And I immediately contacted my lawyer and asked them to take action. I decided I needed to act quickly. I never imagined he'd pull something like this the day after yesterday. Thomas was quick to act without thinking. Thomas and my Sil started showing up at the facility every day, waiting for me in the lobby. Even after my lawyer sent a no-contact order, they pulled another stunt. I was tricked into marrying Aubrey. I'm demanding alimony. Thomas claimed he didn't know I couldn't have children. If he had known, he wouldn't have married me, so he was demanding alimony. If I didn't pay, he threatened to report me for marriage fraud. I handed over a recording to my lawyer. "I proposed to you because I wanted to spend my life with you, Aubrey. If I wanted kids, I would have married someone else. Or do you really not trust me?" These were Thomas's words when he proposed to me, clearly recorded. Thomas was furious about this recording, but it was just my naturally cautious nature. You never know what might happen in this world. So, I always record whenever something seems important. It's just a habit. I used to listen to this recording alone, reminiscing about that moment, trusting Thomas. I never imagined it would come in handy like this. Thomas then claimed that after we got married, I made him quit his job and do all the housework, calling it emotional abuse and demanding alimony. If I didn't pay, he threatened to report me to the police for coercion. I submitted another recording. "I'll be a stay-at-home husband and take care of everything. I don't mind my job, but wouldn't it be easier for you if I handled the household stuff? You know I'm good at cooking." This was Thomas declaring his intention to be a stay-at-home husband, clearly recorded. Thomas then demanded compensation for the emotional distress caused by the wiretapping and threatened to report me for eavesdropping if I didn't pay. Unfortunately for him, there is no crime called eavesdropping in the legal system. Penalties exist if the recorded content is used to cause harm, or if illegal entry or property damage occurs while setting up the recording device. But the act of recording itself isn't a crime. Having failed in every other attempt, Thomas then demanded alimony for the divorce itself, but he was the one who initiated the divorce. Moreover, he even handed me the signed divorce papers without any valid reason, telling me to leave. Of course, I have a recording of that conversation as well. The lawyer explained that, given the circumstances, it was more likely that Thomas owed me alimony. Finally, Thomas, almost in tears, begged for a share of the assets. I decided to accept that proposal. "I would like you to leave in the apartment once we have properly appraised the property and come up with the calculations. Once we have the numbers, we will meet you at the attorney's office." They left without much fuss, and during that time, I sold all the apartment's furniture and put the apartment up for sale. Due to rising property values, it sold for more than I expected. When I showed Thomas and my Sil the sale amount combined with other assets, they were ecstatic. Of course, they would be. The total assets amounted to several $billions. So, I get half of this? No way. This was just the total value of the assets I had acquired myself. When the lawyer handed Thomas the paperwork with his actual share, he turned red with anger. Why is my share zero? The lawyer explained patiently. Most of my assets were acquired before the marriage, so Thomas had no claim to them. Regarding post-marriage income, he was entitled to half, but after deducting living expenses, necessary costs, and the alimony I claimed, his share was actually negative. Why do I have to pay alimony? The lawyer showed him the documentation. Thomas had been cheating. The other woman was someone he met through an online game. Thomas had told her that I was 10 years older, had a chronic illness, and that he would inherit all my assets if something happened to me. Though she didn't take him seriously, but she accepted his money and continued to see him. Then, she agreed to testify in exchange for not being sued for damages. And you said this, didn't you? The lawyer played a recording of her testimony. This was the content of the recording. Thomas had told her about my health condition, saying that having a child could be life-threatening for me. The plan was to beg me in tears to have his child, thinking I'd risk my life to do so. He testified that Thomas said it while laughing. Be grateful we're not pressing charges. I enjoyed some pleasant dreams in your cooking, so let's call it even. No further claims. Thomas hung his head and accepted everything. Thus, my short marriage ended in an unfortunate way. I don't know what happened to lost everything Thomas and my Sills couple afterward. And I don't want to know. I just hope they never appear before me never again. Chasing them further would only make me feel more miserable. Honestly, it was quite a significant emotional blow, but fortunately, I have plenty of money and time to heal. I embarked on a round-the-world cruise on a luxury ship. On board, I met people from all over the world, saw various places, and had a wonderful time. There were even a few who made my heart flutter, but remembering Thomas kept me grounded. I didn't want to get hurt the same way again. As I thought that. After the trip, I returned home and started a new life. I lived leisurely at the resort hotel for a while, but soon grew bored. After all, I'm still 40 years old. Thinking about it, I'm still young. Living with young Thomas made me constantly aware of my age. During the year-long cruise, I met women over 80 who were still active and looking for new love. Why should I, at half their age, give up on everything? Even though it ended badly, falling in love was fun. Why should I let someone like Thomas ruin that joy and possibility? That's how I began to feel. While pondering these thoughts, my phone suddenly flashed with a new message. It was from a man I met on the ship. He was coming to America soon and asked if we could have dinner together. He had been on the cruise with his high school-age daughter. We had great conversations and often explored ports together. Maybe this is what it feels like to have a daughter, I thought, as I enjoyed our time together. I replied that I'd love to meet him and felt a slight flutter in my chest. From the midpoint of my life, I sensed I was about to take a new step forward.